Hello, my name is Brad, also known as War Weasel. Um, I'm the creator of the QIX Lisp's graphic engine, and this is a presentation I gave a few months ago for Lambda Lounge Indianapolis, a small get-together of mostly functional programmers who talk about cool geek stuff. And this is QIX. Firstly, I wanted to talk a bit about this. This is actually an application I've written in QIX. I ported it over from using a pure CL Horde implementation, and what you see is everything my app. I have not created any of these images previously. I am using Cairo and Pango in order to render them. There's one instance where I load up a file and to actually show you some raster graphics, and you'll see that in a little while. Anyway, let me begin. QIX. It's the year 2012, almost the year 2013, and computers are still a pain to use. I'm very tired of needing a new application for every different task. I'm tired of needing a new data format for every different application. And I'm tired of not being able to connect and use my data in other applications. And I'm upset that I can't share this natively with other people. I'm tired of needing native code, just-in-time code, scripting languages, database languages, domain-specific languages, blah, 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 blah. It's just getting too much to keep track of anymore. There are more languages that I interact with daily as a web developer, as an embedded developer, that I just don't think that I need to use. 7. I want to use the full power of my computer. I don't think we're touching nearly half of a computer's capability, and that's mostly because we can't interface with it efficiently. In order to facilitate that, I want the computer to meet me more than halfway. So what's the big idea? Well, it all goes back to the idea of least common denominators and greatest common denominators. The least common denominator comes with data, and that's text. Anything can be kept as text. It can be held, transmitted, and edited in a hierarchical data format that is also just text. All data, on the other hand, can be displayed in 2 or 3 dimensions. Granted, your screen is just 2 dimensions, and 3D is really, I'm sure there are some sticklers out there, but all data can be displayed in such a manner. At least everything we can display on a computer right now. And finally, all user data is composed of a few simple types: text, vector graphics, raster graphics, 2D images on a 3D mesh, and raw data. I could also add rich text, but I include that under vector graphics. It's a minor thing. Everything else is just these types put together in new and different ways, like structures in computer programming. If we take that and add in time, change over time, we can create video, we can create 3D animations, we can create web pages, which don't have a linear progression. And we also have video games, which also don't have a linear progression in a standard sense like video does. And all that are these other types that I showed here changing over time. Lisp. What does this have to do with Lisp? Well, in order to get started with Lisp, you have to know what Lisp is. So I'm going to give you a really, really quick overview. Please, it'll be very quick, like 5 or 6 slides, so please stick with me. Lisp is created by a thing called S expressions. It's a notation for a nested list, or tree-structured data. Here we have basically a list with hello in it, and then another list in that with world. So this is a list of 2 items, one of which is a list itself with 1 item in it. If you evaluate this as a computer language, it will use hello, the first value, as the function name, and it will pull the data out of these arguments to the right of it. And everything is a function in Lisp. Everything returns a value, even an if statement, which took me a little while to get used to. In this case, we have if Lisp is awesome. Yes it is, no it isn't. Well, of course we're going to get yes it is, because Lisp is indeed awesome. The way it works is that first it must evaluate the awesome question mark function here and see if Lisp QIX is in the awesome group or meets that. And then it can do the if. And finally, it will return a value of yes it is or no it isn't. Oh, yeah, I didn't mention the quote. What is this? Quote blah 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 blah. Okay, that doesn't help us much. A quote just returns whatever is behind it without evaluating it. This way we don't have to treat something as a function, we can just treat it as data. And congratulations, you now know Lisp. Pretty close. Alright, now back to QIX. When you're making something, always start with a problem. Otherwise it's really easy to lose your way. I started with 2. One of which is aircraft carrier traffic control, and another are writers. Aircraft carriers, they're a small runway in the middle of the ocean. When things are moving around on the top, it's very easy for things to get confused. There's a lot of people around some very dangerous equipment, and there are people who have to direct traffic on the ground on an aircraft carrier. Well, they need tools to do this in order to communicate with people and to show where everything is. What do they use now? Well, they use cardboard cutouts and closed circuit television most likely. I haven't heard an update. This is probably about 5 or 10 years old, but still, the fact that they needed it then even, they're using cardboard cutouts. Why? Because it works. It doesn't crash. It's easy to use. They know about it. It doesn't cost the taxpayers, millions of dollars. And it shouldn't. It's a good way of doing this. But the problem is that I think that there's a better way. Now, writers. I know these two don't seem to have a lot in common, and that's kind of the point. I'm trying to solve a lot of problems that users have, and writers are no exception. Whereas pretty much all aircraft carriers are going to need traffic control. Every writer is different. They have vastly different styles, they have different processes, different kinds of books, whether they're documentaries, fiction, whatever they have, they do it differently. And there are dozens of software products out there trying to help writers do their job better. They each act different, they each have a learning curve, and they each take a different format. Okay, finally, what is QIX? QIX is a little bit hard to explain because it is so general. It's not so much an application as it is a way of working with your computer and your data. So I came up with a few ways of trying to describe it. I called it a universal media editor, and that's what I want it to be, but nobody understood what that meant. And I got one question is, do astronauts use it? So that didn't work out so well. 3D Max. Only programmers really know what Emacs is, and the rest of the people just thought of Big Macs, and I don't want to get sued. I'm just a small guy, and small fry, and McDonald's will eat me. Anyway, then I thought, okay, well, it's a lot like Blender, the 3D package Blender, with the editor, built in, and so I came up with Blend Editor, and that just, I'm sorry, no, I don't like that. So I came up with QIX. QIX doesn't have any real preconceptions unless you're a child of the 80s and played the arcade game way back when. So it's a little bit of a tribute to that, but outside of that, there's nothing in common. It's not a game, although you might be able to write QIX in QIX. Yeah, so how are we going to get about this? Well, I want to start with a 3D version of XML markup, and this is similar to what we use in the web today. Here you can see that we create a rectangle in 3D, we add a material to it, add a texture. Here I add some commands in order to draw on it, and that's quite a bit of code when you think about it, and all you're doing is clearing this rectangle and drawing an X across it. Let's see how I do it. Oh wait, I forgot about something. What if I don't know the size of the square that I'm putting this in, and I still want to draw, a perfect X on there? Well, then I have to add a scripting language, and now I have XML, and in this case JavaScript, because this is the ubiquitous XML modification script. It went off the page. There's just way too much stuff there. I mean, just look at it. It looks complex. Maybe there's a better way. Let's start with a little Lisp-based list markup. Here we have with mesh material, make material, with material texture, make the texture, and then I clear the map texture, and there we go. There are commands. It's much more concise than this even. Well, now let's make this one more interactive or dynamic. Oh, it already is. All I have to do is change the numbers to width and height. And so I added a couple lines here, and it's done. Just to get an idea of how powerful it is to use one language for both sets of problems. Here, Lisp is used for both markup and scripting. You hear the term just-in-time compiled. Well, this is too. The scripting is compiled to machine code, and Lisp has been doing this for a very long time, much longer than JavaScript has. We can also add in arbitrary things like event handling and event loops. So what's the big deal? Why am I telling you this? Well, I told you all that so I could tell you this. Imagine we have an interface for importing 3D objects and positioning them in 3D. Don't worry about the interface right now, but let's just say that it's constant across everything you do. If you have 3D, you know that you can move 3D in your dimensions, and you're not concerned about that. Well, now all you have to do is import a few models of aircraft, put them on a model of an aircraft carrier, and you're no longer using cardboard cutouts. Share this information with people in a read-only manner, and you don't need the closed-circuit television. You've got a much cheaper version of what they're using now. Only maybe it's a little bit better because now they can visualize maybe what it looks like from a particular point. If they wanted to know if someone could see maybe some semaphores, across the deck, they could see that now. Making video games would almost be too simple in this manner. The text and the text that you see here in my presentation is like this. You have I'm taking a paragraph and I'm creating a span very much like HTML except with parentheses, and I'm creating the rich text you see over here with the bold and the coloring and the underlines and the changes in fonts. So we have formatted text and we have graphics. Now let's talk about the writers. Since we can put text, graphics, and other data together and put multiple pages together the same way, writers can organize their data as they see fit. Lisp is hierarchical. You can put the data in any way you want, and this can allow you to create varying data formats for whatever it is that you want to create. You just put something under something, and you've suddenly got something bigger. A Lisp editor? Well, this is kind of nice. This is a read eval print loop. Non-programmers, don't worry. This would just be a simple way to talk to your application for testing, for debugging, or if you wanted to do something quickly where you didn't want to have to do all the clicks, you could automate things, and it's just readily available. QIX saves some things as files, but if we added a recursive tree diff algorithm, and we would have version control at our fingertips. What's nice about this is that the version control would be for all the different types of documents possible, not just text, not just source code. You would be able to use the same interface for changes for your Word style documents and your spreadsheets as you would your video games and your text. Also, I don't see any reason why we couldn't use a video control interface like your VCR controls to see your changes over time. In most of our applications, there's a false dichotomy between data and display. Really, your display code is data. And if we can share the data, we can share the display code so that we can make sure that we can show other people exactly what we're looking at. And by means of show, I wanted to talk about a GUI. Yes, this should be a GUI. It's a 3D application. Okay, there's going to have to be an interface to deal with that. But it won't be a normal Windows GUI. I think users have evolved beyond that. I think they're much more sophisticated, and I think they're ready for a more powerful interface. As long as it's more regular and doesn't just randomly make them push buttons trying to figure out what's going on. In order not to get sued, I use the term block for a 3D window or widget. And really, these are just 3D meshes, similar to what you'd see in a video game or in a CAD drawing. There will be buttons. It will have buttons, so don't worry about that. It won't be entirely unintuitive. You should be able to pick it up pretty quickly. If you look at the edge of your screen right now, the application, the web browser, whatever it is you're looking at this in, go ahead and kind of, unmaximize this. No, really, do it. Okay, now run your cursor over to the side, and you'll see that you get a little icon down here where you can change the size of your window, right? Everybody knows that, right? Really, all this is a button, a really long button that takes up a lot of space to do one thing. And on top of that, because it's so skinny, it's hard to touch. Well, what if we could use all the space around your window or block in a better way? Well, a friend of mine, David O'Toole, turned me on to this, I think it was a squeak morphic interface called halos. And a halo is a group of buttons. They each do something different, but they circle your widget or your block. They can do the normal things: open, close, hide, minimize, etc. Or you can move around your block. In this case, we can do it in X, Y, and Z because we're dealing with 3D. We can resize in 3 and rotate in 3, and there's just no real limit to what these buttons can do, and it's a lot quicker than trying to get to that file menu that's always hanging around at the top and taking up space. Here's an example of what I'm thinking of. Here, I think this closes. I think this brings up a context menu. I'm not sure what all this does. This brings up actually the code in in blocky I/O, you can actually look at the Lisp code that's creating this. And here I think is the resize. I'm not sure what the other things do, but I do know that all this is information for a game that was updating real time on the screen. Command line functionality. Alright. Even the most ardent command line interface users will admit that there's problems with it. Even your Unix gurus do not remember every command line command. No one remembers all the command line switches, even if they did know all the commands. And you have to redo the entire chain of commands when you make a change, because people tend to pipe commands together in a single pipe, so they have to redo the whole thing. Moving between your GUI and your command line is difficult and annoying, and it's difficult to do anything other than just a straight pipe in from the command line. And a pipe is just text data from one application going directly into another text processing application to another one, and things like sort and count and that kind of thing. You can just chain those together. Well, I'd like to do that better. What if I could put data into a block? Okay, I put it in a block. That's not a big deal. But what if I could select from the blocks menu and get a context menu of organized functions that I can use? Things such as sort. And I could sort so that I only see unique items. Get rid of any duplicates. This is sort of like the command line sort-u, but you don't have to remember it, and it's pretty easy to get to. This will create a new block with a line connecting it to the source data, and now you have your old block and a block of sorted items. Now if you change the original, the second one will change as well. Or you could just hit a button or two and type in the command. A hybrid approach, not needing to choose. Alright, here's where I was talking about changing the data. The sort updates when you're done. You could even hide the connections or even the original and just look at the output. You could create a spider web of data sources and bring them together. You could put it in, let's say you could take a text document that you're working on and say you get a word count out of that. You have another block. You put that at the top and connect it to your text buffer, and you now have a word count on top of your text buffer. That's actually quite useful because you could do this with any number of things that you want to keep track of. Also, this is how you would build your own spreadsheet. Notice that you don't need a new application for this. Just the same stuff you were doing before, and you aren't limited. You can deal with any kind of data in your spreadsheet. Now, if we find a way to communicate back and forth and keep these objects consistent across multiple computers, we could have multiple people working on this same application at the same time, like collaborative development on a Word document, say. If you gave each user their own particular space in an application, that would be a social application like MySpace. Or what if I just sent you a blob of data and said, here, look at this? Well, that would be an email replacement. None of this is requiring new file formats. None of this is requiring anything new on anyone's part. It just happens and it works. Lisp is great. I love it, but it's not perfect for what I need. There are a few things I really, really want. One of these things is a safe mode for executing code you don't trust. JavaScript does this well. Also, Java has a sandbox mode that you can run Java in so that it won't harm your computer. Some of the other things that I need. I need your time, your effort. I need help with designing this. I need you. I really do. I need the support of people to kind of keep me going. I run on upvotes. I'm just that kind of person, and that's what keeps me motivated. And it's very easy for me to get off track and go down the next shiny pebble road. So please, let me know what you think of this. Let me know if you like this, and let me know if you have new ideas or you want to help. I'm I'm always willing to talk. Questions or comments? Well, this is a YouTube video, so you can put those in the bottom of the window there. Oh, technical weeds. If anyone's interested in this, you shouldn't be. All this has changed quite a bit. I'm now using my Clinch graphics engine, which is, I don't want to say superior to Horde 3D. The people at Horde 3D have done an excellent job. They've given me a lot of really great ideas. But I thought I could do better in Lisp. And finally, thank you. If you've made it all the way here, well, I wish I had a cookie to give you, but I don't. The only thing I can say is that this is just the tip of the iceberg of what I have planned for QIX. There are a lot of things that I want to do just to make the users and developers' lives easier. If you like, please drop me a line, warweasel1@gmail.com, or I should have a place for you to post comments below.